Welcome to I'd Rather Be at the Movies. I'm Justine Browning.
I'm Matt Donato.
And today we'll be discussing some recent releases of note that we think are worthy of discussion.
I think we're going to go Dumb and Dumber 2. We're going to go Rosewater.
Okay.
We're going to go Foxcatcher, and then Beyond the Lights.
We're joined by our guest co-host today, Chiara Spagnola Gabardi.
Bravissima.
I said that right, yeah. I know
Hi,
that.
Matt and Justine.
So let's talk about Dumb and Dumber. I think the most depressing of all four of these movies.
It's a very sad day, but it's way more sad for Dumb and Dumber 2, I believe.
And it was great at the box office on Friday. Isn't
I
that
don't want to
depressing?
hear that.
It's actually,
okay.
I expected at this point. It just seems that that's the kind of movie that's going to draw people in. And if you went on Facebook and social media, everyone was digging Dumb and Dumber 2, like, not critically, but audience-wise.
But was there any joke that you found amusing? Because my face went
He's
blank
laughing,
for the
so
entire
probably.
time. I was
I
completely
will give you one thing.
repulsed.
One thing. When we meet Lloyd's roommate, do you remember who, or was that Harry? I'm sorry, did I misspeak there? Is it Harry or Lloyd?
When we meet his roommate, go on.
Anyway,
Okay.
when we meet his roommate, it's actually someone famous under the mask. I won't reveal what he's doing if you haven't seen the movie. Do you know who that was?
Yes, but was that the amusing part of the
It was
film?
amusing after I found out. So it wasn't funny in the theater. I
Okay, so
actually
the
kind
best part of the movie
yeah,
was something after.
100%,
I had
yeah.
heard two rumors, both of which I believe. One was that Jennifer Lawrence was supposed to do a cameo,
She nixed it on her own.
and she decided that she was going to separate herself from that movie.
Wise choice.
Right.
She should.
And I also heard from a friend of mine who's a TV writer that Aaron Sorkin offered Jeff Daniels money so that he wouldn't do the movie. And I believe that. That's just a rumor, that's alleged. But as someone who's a huge fan of The Newsroom and has seen what a fabulous job he's done on that
Yeah.
show, and he won an Emmy. He beat Bryan Cranston for an Emmy last year. And to see him stoop to this level, I can imagine why Sorkin was just
It was
like,
funny
please
when they
no.
were in the height of their game and they were doing those kind of jokes. Because those were, I mean, Jim Carrey was hilarious in Dumb and Dumber. I love Dumb and Dumber.
In the previous Dumb
Yes.
and
Oh,
Dumber.
no,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
In the
yeah.
previous, yes. Dumb and Dumber
Okay,
2 is a different story.
Yes.
But I can still watch Dumb and Dumber, and a lot of people were saying, you don't like Dumb and Dumber 2 because you saw Dumb and Dumber, the original, as a kid. You found it was
funny as a
because
kid.
the maturity level's down here. And
Yeah,
now
that's
you're
true.
a quote-unquote adult, and Dumb and Dumber 2 doesn't appeal to you. That's not true. I can still watch Dumb and Dumber. It's a much smarter, for being as dumb as it is, it's a much smarter movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's much more well done. It's much more kind of level where you're not bouncing around with these ridiculous jokes or trying to you're throwing X, Y, and Z at a wall at this point and seeing what sticks.
There's more sense of adventure on the road trip in the first
I
one. Here,
agree
it
with that.
was
There
just-
was actually a plot in that one, and I think people are running out to see this and checking in at the movies on Facebook and posting about it because it's a sense of nostalgia, like revisiting these characters that you were so fond of when you were younger.
And they were younger too. They made more sense at the time
Yes,
with
yes,
that kind of
yes.
amusement. Now they're completely out of date.
Well, Jim Carrey too and Jeff Daniels, they just didn't look the same.
No.
And I'm not saying they should have. They've aged, and that's fine. But their performances were not
I
the same.
mean,
It
catheter jokes, sexualizing an elderly woman. The trailer is just as bad as this. I thought maybe they just did a bad job with the trailer. Maybe those scenes were on the cutting room floor.
That's the thing. If you
I'm
love
sad
the
to
trailer,
say.
you're gonna love the movie.
Yeah, if you love the trailer, something's wrong with you. I hate to say it. But yes,
Let's not
you will
attack
love the movie.
America at this. We don't need to But the last
Some
thing I'll
people
say
did like
is,
it, yeah.
When was the last funny movie that the Farley brothers made? When was the last funny movie that Jim Carrey
Something
made?
About Mary.
Okay.
Yes,
yeah.
probably. I
would-
concur. Yes.
Me, myself, and Irene, I can give a little bit.
Okay.
And I mean,
Jim
again,
Carrey
Jim
funny?
Carrey.
The only thing that sticks out for Jim Carrey at this point, like the last 10 years for me, was Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and he wasn't even being funny.
That was super dramatic.
That was super
Exactly,
dramatic.
exactly. So
Oh, you
why,
know,
why?
I love you, Philip Morris, for me. I kind of
Okay.
like that. You did a good job.
You're in
with
the
Ewan
minority,
McGregor.
but I
I
think
know
that
I
was
am.
really
I'm
underrated.
really
No, I agree with you.
In the minority on that one.
It's funny because I get to see them sometimes in Italian when I'm back at home and they're dubbed, and also the titles are translated. So for Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, the title was translated to "If You'd Dump Me, I Erase You," and you could see their
What?
bright radiant faces, smiling, and you would go in thinking it was a comedy, and then you would go out feeling
that's
devastated. So
interesting.
that's also
Complete
very deceiving.
false
The
marketing.
advertising
Yeah.
that there is behind these sort of
That's
movies.
Well,
interesting.
Dumb and Dumber 2 is not false advertising. It's
No.
Bad.
exactly what you're getting
Also
when
in
you see.
Italy, I'm sure that's what we're going to
But
get.
these kinds of movies do well internationally, I think. Like all the Adam Sandler movies, for the most part, they do well internationally.
Hundreds of millions.
Because slipping on a banana peel is funny in any language, right?
And you
some
still
of
do
us.
get the draw from Jim Carrey. As much as he hasn't been in quote-unquote relevance, you still get that name Carrey out there. I don't think Daniels as much, but
Right.
people go to see Jim Carrey movies.
Well, from the utterly depressing to depressing with a ray of hope, Rosewater.
We'll go to Rosewater.
I would love to discuss this film because it really stayed with me, as I'm sure it did a lot of people. For anyone that doesn't know the backstory, Jon Stewart was actually filming a few segments that were set in Iran. He set his correspondent, Jason Jones, to travel over there, and it makes for a great scene in the film because they do reenact it. But he interviewed a man called Maziar Bahari, a journalist from Newsweek, who was over there covering the elections. If anyone remembers 2009, the summer of 2009, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad won the vote by 62%. And a lot of people felt that they had to contest this by taking to the streets.
because it might have been a little foul play.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that this is a huge reason why a number of people were put in prison. There was a level of paranoia that was going on. And one of them, of course, was Maziar. For many reasons, but among them because he was consorting with an American spy, Jason Jones of The Daily Show, who was also actually Canadian. Right, that's been a running gag. Yeah, just throwing that out there. So the film actually captures what it was like for him being in prison for all of those months, being tortured, being interrogated.
Solitary confinement, not even prison.
Exactly, and what it meant for him because he lost his sister and father, both of whom died in prison. So for him, this was this really difficult experience in many ways, and he had to call on his imagination, and he had to use his intelligence and the fact that he was cultured, of course, more so than his captors, to deter them, I guess, or to relate to them on some sort of level where he would be able to, I guess, outsmart them, which we
So I
see
think-
in many sequences in this.
We
And
can all
just-
agree that it's an important story, I think, that
Absolutely.
need to be told.
And as you were saying, he manages also to escape from lunacy by using his humor, his imagination, and I think Jon Stewart portrays this majestically because
Yeah.
you also get to laugh along the way as you follow this very dramatic, real story. And there's some poetry in it and the way it's entirely depicted. So I think it's a very good chronicle.
The use of social media, I think at the time people were
There
posting
is-
on Twitter, and you
There's
do
one
see
scene
that.
where, in cinema now we're using Twitter more and more. to share from all those
Exactly.
movies. And again, Rosewater has the ones
reminded
where
me
you
of
see
that.
hashtags everywhere flooding
Yes,
the city.
that was, I thought, really imaginative, and the use of illegal satellite dishes, that's captured in a really imaginative way. But the way that he shows the protests that were going on, how in fear people were of the government, and what danger they were in. There's actually a scene of a woman being killed that is a very famous shot. They actually made a whole HBO documentary about, and I thought that was really clever that he included that, or really important that he included that. But I mean, Gael Garcia Bernal, different role for him. I mean, he's great, but
He's amazing. I mean, whatever he does, we all know him from Mi Tu Mama Tambien, and ever since then. But I would like to throw something at you. One flaw, perhaps, I found in the movie is the title. I don't think it's
Rosewater?
effective enough.
I thought the title of the book, and then they came for me, was much better. So I'm not sure, and I honestly think Rosewater is so.
It throws you off track. It's confusing.
Like, it's almost like you think Rose.
Well,
it's
you
a
get the introduction
positive.
of the
Yes,
Rosewater being
that's a
made
really
and all.
beautiful.
So like it makes sense
moment.
there, and then all of a sudden it kind of just takes a back seat to the entire story. And
I think so, but also it kind of the way that he chose to approach this movie. Like a lot of people said, oh, it was a little bit Disney. It was
Well,
a little Ron Howard.
I'm gonna say
Yeah.
that right now. That I liked Rosewater,
Yeah.
and I think it's a movie everyone should see because of the message and because of what it's portraying. But at the same time, it very much feels like a first feature from Jon Stewart. It doesn't feel like one of these movies that has a lot of, I'm going to say emotional depth, where we get how historically, accurate this movie is.
Yeah.
And we get how weighty it is in that sense. but I didn't walk away really feel like I just sat through one of the most emotional, moving masterpieces I've ever seen.
I think the tragedy is he obviously got out. He wrote a book. He's having a movie made about him.
Right.
But the end of the film does point out there are countless people, thousands of people in prison right now for minor or offenses that we would look at and go,
The same kind of things,
couldn't even-
too.
yeah.
You know, the same kind of journalistic.
Yes.
You're a
and the
spy,
things that are
right?
happening now to journalists, that also I think is another reason why I think you feel the weight of this film, but also you go, okay, so you're telling me one story that ended well for this man, but you feel for the people that are left
And
behind.
again, I won't say it's Disney. Don't get me wrong in a sense. I don't think this is a lighthearted kids movie, but in the same respect, I think it could have been a little darker for the material. I think it was a little bit. He keeps it very upbeat, and he keeps it very like a little entertainment value to it. And again, I don't hate that. I don't think it's bad, but in the same respect, I could have used a little more gravity to it.
You know, I think Jon Stewart at the press conference was pointing out the reason he cast Gael, because he said so many actors auditioned for it, but Gael, he auditioned with this one scene in particular where he has to, in a few minutes, go through like 3 ranges of emotions. He's about to, or he feels he might be killed at that moment.
Yeah.
They let him call his pregnant wife. He finds out he's having a girl.
And all of a sudden
He's
he's laughing.
ecstatic,
Yeah.
he's laughing, and he said it was just incredible how he did that. I think that's a scene that really stuck out.
Absolutely. And going back to what you were saying previously, I found very touching the way the movie concludes, dedicating the entire story to all those people who don't have a voice, who don't get a chance to be heard, who don't get a chance to have a movie about them, and who may actually end up dying in those prisons.
Absolutely.
So that sent a very strong message overall.
You know, going back to the segment that he did with Jason Jones,
Which again, that's one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
It
It's
really is
perfect how you get Jones
hysterical.
going the whole time. But you also see Jason Jones on a side you don't normally see because you see him off the camera talking to, you know, a man
And
who's- we know is
apologizing
gonna
for a
be
bad
in
joke he
jail.
made.
And he apologizes for the joke and he says, "No, I'm the bad guy. I'm the idiot." You just,
Exactly.
It's fine.
And-
you get to see him out of character, and I thought that
And
was really
if
cool.
anyone hasn't seen, I really recommend you go back and watch those episodes where The Daily Show went around, because really what those segments were aiming for, and I think what the film aims for, is this is a place, you know, Iran, the entire Middle East in general, has been portrayed as this, you know, these evil forces, these people that are supporting Al-Qaeda and all of that. Now, anybody who's delved into it a little bit knows that a lot of people living in these places support what the U.S. is doing. And in the interview that Mazir gives, he says, you know, we are not unlike the West. We are not unlike Americans, right?
And that's one of the things that gets
We are united by a common enemy. And I think that this movie and those segments where he goes into people's homes and he says, you have a beautiful cave, and it's just it's a regular house that anybody would have, that you would know.
Right.
And so I think the movie and what they were aiming for on the show really captures that. So I would love to move on to an even more depressing movie, if that's possible.
a day of depression.
Foxcatcher.
Depressing.
Not as happy an ending.
No, but at least the ending gives sense to the entire film because it's so sloppy. I mean, if the story weren't real, if we didn't have the chance to dig back into the history, you would wonder why the heck did they make this film?
You know, that's interesting. I should even mention the backstory is pretty fascinating here. I know you're not too familiar with the backstory,
no.
but Mark and Dave Schultz, they were 2 wrestlers in the Olympics, gold medal winners. They're played here by Channing Tatum and Mark Ruffalo. And what happened to
Fantastic cast, by the way.
an
Yes.
incredible cast. But Mark Schultz was somebody that was really down on his luck in the mid-'80s. He was really, really struggling, and he got a call from John DuPont, a millionaire heir to the DuPont chemical fortune. And he basically made him his puppet. He said, I want to compete in the Olympics. I want America to win. And he torments and trains and does other things that I may have misinterpreted. Kiara and I disagree.
Yeah, we had different
We'll get to that in a
readings.
second.
Okay.
But
Save
that's
that.
a whole other
Waiting.
topic.
That's one topic. Yeah. We'll get there.
But you see, and then it all ends tragically in 1996. So here, in the first scene, like you'll see that's really established so well that this person is desperate. And there's also a book out right now called Foxcatcher, where Mark Schultz goes into why he was so desperate to accept this invitation, why he was so put off by this person. And it also goes a lot into his relationship with his brother and why they were so competitive, or what thread was pulled at in this and over these years. And I don't think the film goes into that enough, but The insane thing about it all is from the opening moment, you just know. It's almost like a horror movie. You know that this is going to end
A thriller,
poorly.
yes, there is that tension
Yeah,
along the
and
way.
The
Steve
first time I
Carell's
saw
like
Steve
a-
Carell in costume, I was kind of terrified.
They're
But
both
it's a
wearing-
lame tension because you don't get that agitated. You're like, okay, when's it
Yeah,
coming?
come on,
It's like an
come on.
annoyance.
Is
almost.
anything going to happen? And finally, after 2 hours and a half or so, something
Does happen.
That happens.
Yes, and it was, I hate to admit this, I feel terrible about admitting this, but I'm sorry, I was texting while I was in the movie because I was
Never a
so
good sign.
bored. I was so bored by it. Now, of course, Channing, so angry in the film. You feel his anger, it's just like pouring out of him. It's incredible.
Smoke coming out of the ears.
Exactly, and you feel for him a lot through this, from beginning to end. And I like to call this movie, No, Channing, don't!
Terrified. I'm glad they went with Fox
Well, it's a
Pictures.
different role for him, so I thought it was a good challenge.
Yeah, well, I say that meaning don't accept, and it'd be like if you're home eating ramen noodles, because they show him eating ramen noodles, which I take issue with as is showing that
That's what
he's
sets you
really
off about
poor.
this movie, ramen.
And he gets this call to go to the DuPont estate, live there, wear the clothing John DuPont wants him to, say what John DuPont wants him to. And so you're like, no, don't, please don't become a millionaire's puppet, don't do it. Ramen is not that bad. Comes in many flavors. It's not that bad. Eat the ramen. And I think what also I think struck me about it is the fact that people forget he's actually a good actor. People don't want to believe Channing Tatum's a good actor, right? If you
People
look,
remember him for his silly roles, unfortunately.
okay,
It's
but
unfortunate.
I would argue that somebody that can move through those genres so effectively is rare.
He's a chameleon.
You know, you have 21, 22 Jump Street, you have the romantic comedies, romantic dramas like
Magic
The Vow.
Mike.
And Magic
romantic
Mike,
too.
though, I had this discussion with you. I
Yes.
think Magic Mike is about a lot more than being a stripper. It's about a man's pursuit of the American dream,
Of
you know, and doing anything he has to survive. Even in that film, I think that anger is there, that determination. Even in the Step Up movie, I'm gonna argue. I know.
Now you're-
But yes, he always gets labeled as the hot guy who hasn't
Kind of the
got
party
talent.
guy. He's like the frat guy almost. at
He was
times.
nominated. He was sexiest man of the year.
Yeah,
a
it was
couple of
People
years ago.
magazine,
He's
yeah.
always about the looks, but I think this was a good role for him to break through that label. But the script was lame, so
Right.
he did have the chance to mold himself as an actor, but you don't get out of the movie theater excited. So
There were
that's the-
shots that I thought, wow, that's so compelling because there's a lot of bird and because he's really obsessed with bird watching, Steve Carell's character, but there's a lot of animal and war metaphors throughout
Right.
this, and there's a point where they're standing, because it's set in Pennsylvania, where they're standing on grounds where Civil War incidents actually occurred, and I think it's this really great moment. You look around at the statues and what that area means,
Yes.
but really a lot of it was just dead air,
Well,
dead
Steve
space.
Carell is obsessed with several things with his character.
Okay, and
His
now we get to
mother
that.
primarily.
Oh, that's another thing.
Did you have a sort of Norman
The-
Bates sensation at some
A
point?
little bit, for
Again,
sure.
the horrorness coming out of
For
this.
sure, yeah, there
Explains how
was.
the whole thing unveils.
There
after a while.
was, and there were a lot of. I mean, you barely see her.
Vanessa Redgrave.
You ba-
Wasn't she completely wasted there?
And so,
I
but
mean,
Sienna
such-
Miller was Mark Ruffalo's wife in this,
I
and
know.
it was like, why did they get Sienna Miller to do like what 2, 3 scenes?
They
it was
needed
really
catchy
odd.
names for people to go see it.
And you don't see John DuPont's wife
He doesn't have a wife.
in the film. He did.
He did,
And you
okay.
wouldn't know it.
Okay.
And that's the other
Exactly.
thing.
As someone that didn't know
I
that.
have the excuse I'm Italian,
Yeah.
so I do know and I don't know the
Oh no, I'm saying that
story.
works though because
Okay.
you don't know it.
Well,
and you can
he
pick it up in the movie.
actually tried to kill her several times, and I think it was a mistake that they left
Normal
that
marriage.
out.
That's fine.
It was.
Yeah, not even metaphorical,
Yeah, it's a normal
like when in in marriages, but he did, and there were a lot of insane things that had happened over the years that are not really captured. He would make the wrestlers go in the attic because he believed there were ghosts. He thought he was Jesus. He thought he was the
Really?
Dalai
Send them into
Lama.
Ghostbusters. That's great.
Exactly.
Peter Schaffer.
And so I would have loved to have seen that.
Maybe they thought it
a
would
totally
have
different
spoiled
movie.
the surprise ending.
You know what? I think that's what they were trying to go for. Is like, here's just a powerful man. You know, he's doing cocaine in a helicopter, just like any other millionaire. Actually, there's something really sinister. But the thing that we were disagreeing on
Go ahead.
is the fact that I thought I saw something that was very sexual at one point, and basically John DuPont wakes Channing Tatum's character up in the middle of the night, Mark Schultz's character in the middle of the night several times going, let's wrestle. That's not normal.
That's sexual. I'd say that's kind
That's
of
sexual, but I was saying, did I just see sex? I was texting her, and then someone else who I texted responded, oh, he goes, that kind of wrestling is what got me out of Milwaukee. So that was one interpretation.
Well, it's all
Interesting.
implied.
It's implied. He was closeted homosexual.
There is that sexual tension, but there isn't the act per se. So
I mean, he does love to watch them wrestle at all hours.
I can say
Maybe
I
it's
never
even
wake
more
my roommate up to
sexual.
say that. So I
You
think
never
that
wake
might
your
be
roommate
something
up
sexual.
and
That's
say-
we don't have midnight wrestling matches. I mean,
But I guess I took it too far saying, I think I just saw sex, which it probably was just wrestling. But who knows? I mean, it's not, the thing is, in this film, the relationship between those two is so absurd, but also it's master-servant kind of relationship at a certain
Channing
point.
Tatum's in it to be his
cat and mouse.
Exactly. So you do think if he told him or forced him to do anything like that, he can't say no. This guy owns him. But anyway.
So can I ask though?
Yes.
I mean, there's a little bit of awards buzz going on around this, and it sounds like
Yeah.
you guys don't really agree with that. I mean, do you see
No.
anything even for just Carell maybe? Or
Oh, I did not like Carell's
You didn't like
performance.
him?
Yeah,
I thought
she didn't.
I thought he was over the top. He was ridiculous. He wasn't believable at all.
Okay.
The one I liked the most was Mark Ruffalo.
Yes.
Who has a
He's
smaller
like the
role, but
heart of
he's
the
very
film.
Raw, very, very calm.
He's so
very into
underrated, though, in my
character.
opinion.
And
Yeah.
Channing Tatum, of course.
Channing was amazing. I mean, really, like, people forget that for a guide to recognizing your saints, people were actually comparing him to Brando. Google it. There were some reviews that came out that said that, and here it just kind of
he
reminds
has
you
talent. He's shown talent.
I'm really
he just gets labeled,
advocating, but-
unfortunately. I think let's move on to Beyond the Lights at this point.
Well, yeah, speaking of someone controlling someone else, Beyond the Lights, I think a film that just stays with you, really, really affecting, kind of changes the way that you think about the entertainment industry and the people in it. The lead actress is Gugu Mbatha-Raw, and she plays a singer named Noni, who is basically at the hands of her momager, a compilation of a lot of momagers in the industry, like Minnie
Momzilla.
Momzilla, played by Minnie Driver. And
Sounds all right.
they have a very interesting relationship where Noni was the ticket out of near poverty in the UK, and through her talent, through her voice, winning contests as a child, she's been able to, over the years through hard work, have this incredible career where she's on the cusp of just blowing up, becoming incredibly famous. And you sense that pressure that she has to be as famous as possible and be as successful. Yes, has to make it. And one of the first scenes that we see is a music video called Masterpiece, where she has duct tape on her breast, and she's wearing practically nothing, and she's being spanked, and she's in a very submissive position where a white rapper is she's basically underneath him and all of that. So right away it's established. Yes.
Twerking, it's a mixture
Yes.
between Miley Cyrus, Rihanna, Britney Spears.
Yes.
Just all of them
Yes.
thrown in one.
She's eating shrimp suggestively off her giant
That
nails.
doesn't even sound attractive.
That's really interesting that you say that. Gina By the Woods, the director, has said that men have come up to her after screenings of this saying, wow, you made me want to be better. Like, I now understand something that I didn't before. You know, the sexualization of women is something that I think we don't even think about in the hip hop world, in the entertainment industry in general. But I think this movie...
Pretty obvious, though. I mean,
No,
like,
but it's something that's kind of second nature. Like,
Oh,
you
yeah.
expect that at these award shows and in these music videos
that women are gonna go out there
people
and
are going to
do-
show up in chains and in see-through outfits. And just look at J-Lo's video, Booty, right? Now, she's controlling that, and Beyonce's video, Partition. They're both controlling their image, and it's kind of presented as them being powerful and taking charge of their sexuality. But if you really think about it, it's all being done and presented for the male gaze, right?
Of course, yes. No, but as you were saying before, the mother is the controlling person at the beginning of the story. So in the end, it's a coming of age story because
Yeah.
she breaks through the chains that her mother has wrapped her in, and she takes her own way, and she becomes a more raw, unique artist who relies uniquely on the power of her voice and on music, proper music, not the flashy,
Auto-tunes
glitter,
and, yeah.
sexual image that that the studio wants for her.
And Gina Bythewood was talking about her inspiration for this. She delved a lot into Marilyn Monroe's biography and Judy Garland's biography. And I think you could argue even Michael Jackson's experience kind of parallels with this. You know, somebody whose strings are being pulled by someone else, someone who has no sense of their own identity, and how damaging that can be. And we can look back at Britney Spears, who became famous very young. She was, of course, somebody that in public, on stage and whatnot, had to present her sexuality at all times, it seemed.
The Lolita.
Exactly.
And she almost grew up on stage, too. Everyone watched her mature, and everyone watched
Yes.
her.
Right.
Pretty much like this character.
And if you recall, of course, I mean, for years,
end.
her getting hauled away to a mental institution, you know, photographers were all watching that and relishing in it. You know, her shaving her head in the middle of the night.
Her nervous
This-
breakdown,
her nervous
yes.
break- This girl was
Marrying Kevin
suffering,
Federline,
yes.
just bad decisions.
But you know, going back in time, another story that came to my mind, very much related to this, is Gypsy, the musical
Oh,
with
that's
Fanny Bryce.
interesting.
Also with a
Yeah.
teenage child prodigy who can't stand anymore all the pressure from the mother and the showbiz. So, I mean, this is an old story. It's being told in a more contemporary way, and but it's timely.
But there's also, you know, Nate Parker is, I didn't even mention, because we're just talking about the girl here, but
Exactly,
Nate
yeah.
Parker's character, he's a cop who rescues her during her suicide attempt and then is kind of by her side as it's being dissected by the TMZs and Inquirers of the world and the 24-hour news cycle.
Bloodsuckers.
The blood, exactly, but that is one thing that it captures really well. Like, you really do have an inside look. It pulls back the curtain on that world when you're leaving an event. Now, you and I left the hotel yesterday for the Hunger Games press conference. It was just so scary. Like,
It
we
was
couldn't
just a
even
press
get,
conference, too.
and it was
Like,
just a
they were
press
team of
conference.
people, outside fans, I should say.
Yeah.
Just waiting just to see Jennifer Lawrence, just to see if she would come out the front door.
Think
and
about
it was just
that.
us.
Like,
and they're like, "Ah, come on, seriously?"
but like that kind of attention on a daily basis, and you do feel that fear that they
It
have.
was weird for me, knowing I had, none of them wanted to see me, but I was still standing there in front of all these people going like,
Don't look at
"Take a
me.
picture of this, because this is never happening again. This is great."
I did the same thing. I think, you know, when if you've ever seen, because now it's really, really common to upload videos online of a celebrity leaving a certain event, a celebrity arriving at a certain event, and you can hear what the paparazzi are yelling at them, the crude things that they're saying to them. And I think that when they get in their car in this movie and people are banging on it and just that predatory
It's
feeling.
creepy, yes, terribly. But yet again, I mean, they're not poor wretches, so come on.
No, you don't
They're
feel.
No, not at all.
They're having
You don't feel sorry
great
for them,
lives,
but
so.
but I think it does, more than a lot of films I've seen, it does make fame seem incredibly scary.
Yeah, they
you know?
live under magnifying glass. Every little detail that is out of place is bloated. They don't have a private life because a breakup, an illness, a tummy ache, whatever is the just
A haircut is on CNN.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there again, what I liked about this movie is that it showed both sides of the coin. Yes,
Yes.
they always have the press on them, but there again, they're lucky blokes. So come
Right,
on,
and she does
let's
realize.
not feel sorry for them.
No, but
There are loads of homeless people out there.
I don't know if it's necessarily feeling sorry, but it is, if you do think about a person whose image is constructed, she has to look a certain way, she has to be a certain way.
Yes,
There's,
of
you know,
course.
she has to wear, she said, or at one point, Nate Parker's character, Kaz, says, you know, you're basically describing her as being interweave, ass up, face down. Like, that's kind of like a
Yes.
position that she has
Yeah.
to. And if you look at like all the Rolling Stone covers over the like past 20 years, and a lot of these performances where they come out with the coat and then they reveal lingerie underneath, that's all really something that inspired the director. And there's a moment where she decides not to open her coat. We see how horribly wrong it goes. Here she is having this powerful moment where she doesn't want to expose herself. She just wants to sing the song, and that's
Nobody
really
wants that.
nobody.
But there again,
Unfortunately.
she breaks through and creates her own image. So
Well, this has been lovely, guys. I really loved chatting with you.
So can we end though by kind of saying what movies we liked and didn't like? I feel like we just discussed them. So I mean, we're gonna say collectively, Dumb and Dumber.
I hated it. I
skip
liked
that.
the other three.
awful. Yes.
So
Foxcatcher. In and out.
It stays with you, though.
It
It
does.
stays with you, but I think the book that Mark Schultz wrote,
Go read the book.
much better.
Okay.
Yeah, you know what? You better spend that on the book. Spend the money on the book. Don't go
It's
see the
worthwhile
movie.
to get to know the story.
It's
a little
much
bit.
more interesting. It's much better paced, the book, than the movie. So.
Interesting.
And Rosewater, I do recommend. I think Jon
I
Stewart
still-
did a
that's
great
what I'm saying. I
job.
still say you should see Rosewater. Again, it feels like a first feature.
And Beyond the Lights, it was one of my favorites, even though I know it's like riddled with cliches and things like that.
It's girly, but we like it.
That's turning out to be one of the most acclaimed of the
I
weekend.
know,
though.
it's been
Like, that's turning out to
amazing.
be-
Good to know.
I was really happy to see that. So we're going to leave you with a little segment, though, a segment which we should be in therapy for.
Yeah, I don't know if this is gonna work, but we're just gonna throw it out there. Hey, if it catches, it catches.
So every time we do a show, we really want to talk to someone in the industry.
Exactly.
But
A little interview style.
sometimes
but something
studio
different.
space
You
isn't
can do
available.
An interview anywhere, I feel like. And we're trying to go outside the box and
Let's
do
let
an
the,
interview somewhere.
the
Just
let's let the
roll
clip
the
speak
clip
for
and let's
itself.
just see what happens, I think. So, you guys comfy?
What is this?
I didn't book anywhere to do this interview, so we're kind of in my bed.
You told me that this would be in a professional studio.
This is professional. It's matching at least.
Yeah, I guess so.
Hidden camera.
No,
That looks like a camera. Why do you have a camera over your bed?
it's a heater. Maybe.
I've heard that before.
Anyway, so welcome to my room in Greenpoint, everybody.
Thank you.
Asta, I guess we met back in the New York Horror Film Festival a year ago.
Yeah, it's been a year. Year
Kind
of
of
friendship.
weird times watching you in a Lloyd Kaufman movie.
Yeah.
Kind of good Lloyd stories that you want to tell us? Maybe one or two?
Well, there are so many.
I can imagine there would be a few.
Well, for instance, the first day of shooting, we had to shoot our love scene.
Right.
It's kind of
You and Katie
getting
Cochran.
memories. Yes, and they took out the audio for a few takes, which meant that Lloyd would be yelling at us while directing us to do things. So he would yell like "grab her boob" and all this stuff, and I got in a bit of a feud with him, and I stopped between a take, and I was like, I was in the moment. Can you wait till later? And then I realized like, no, he can't.
No, he can't wait.
No, he can't wait.
And there was
So
some goo in that scene. I
there was
believe,
goo. It was actually green vanilla pudding. Yeah. So it was delicious. That we did that at one take, and it was good fun.
My question is, do a lot of creepers come up to you after movies like that? Do weird people approach you on the street thinking that you might want to get involved in some saucy, eerie stuff?
Saucy, eerie stuff. Yeah. Yeah, I've actually had a few instances where people have recognized me in public, which I wasn't actually expecting because this is kind of like a small, like indie cult type thing.
Horror movie,
Yeah, but like I have been approached, like, for instance, I went to Ohio last Christmas and I was on the Greyhound and waiting in line, and this person like approached me and Clay, who were both in the movie, and was like, "Oh, are you so and so?" And then we were just realizing we're gonna be on this bus with this person for 15 hours, like.
Not escaping them.
Yeah, and
Never.
but no, people. I mean, the fans are really nice, but they can be kind of weird. Like, I have been asked to be a special guest star in a few couples' bedrooms.
Special
awkwardly.
guest star.
Special guest in what way?
What does that entail? Is that laid out neatly before?
It kind of reminds me of this situation, to be honest. But they didn't
Thanks,
say it
Matt.
was an interview.
Remind her of when she's has to be a guest star in couples.
Yeah.
I mean,
And it's always really weird because the first time I was ever asked was when I was like at this tequila bar, and
I'm sure the tequila helped that.
I was there for tapas actually, and this girl approached me in a bathroom and was like, "Oh, hey, are you an actress?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, well, my husband and I are directors. And then so forth.
Yeah, that never.
What
ends
does them
or
being
starts out
directors
well.
have to do with it? Were they trying to basically say that
I
you
have
can
no
earn a
idea.
part?
I have no
Were you
idea.
auditioning for something?
I
Is
have
that-
no
Or they
idea.
might direct the situation?
I don't know.
At what point do you think, do you know, oh, this person's a fan. Oh, that's so sweet. At what point does it go from that person's a fan to,
That's
oh
a pervert.
my god, I have to.
I
excuse myself.
think probably the point of which I just said is just if they assume a personal relationship with me that
Right
isn't
away.
I don't know. For the most part, fans are great when they when I meet them at like conventions and all that stuff, but like sometimes weird stuff happens and I don't even know if it has to do with the movie or anything or just
I mean, you were making out with Katie Conrad.
Yeah, that's true.
With your shirts off.
My question, has there ever been a piece written about you where they said, hasta la vista, baby?
No, but I have
I don't
heard
approve
that
of that pun.
most of my life.
Yeah.
Most of
Justine
Yeah.
is really good at terrible puns.
And this is
so
why I'm under the blanket and not over the blanket.
Yeah.
I know, I'm kind of
Stay away from the crazy. It happens.
just a little bit.
Oh, anyway, let's move on to Nukem High Volume 2.
Oh
because
yeah.
I saw Volume 1.
I
Yeah.
did
That was
too,
over
yesterday.
a year ago.
Oh my god.
I liked it, and I'm not even a fan of those kinds of, but the opening scene, I was like, oh my
It's
god.
ridiculous.
I
Yeah.
have to
Exactly.
keep watching this.
Yeah. It's
But, so the story is Volume 1 premiered at the New York Horror Film Festival.
Yeah.
Since went on to go Blu-ray, DVD, all that stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
and was considered one of the best movies of the year by the Museum of Modern Art, along
true.
with Wolf of Wall Street and Blue is the Warmest
It
Color.
played in
so-
that
I
entire
can see
collection.
that.
Yeah.
Because it is a piece of art. It's a wacky,
Yeah.
absurd, alluring piece of art.
Yeah,
I
and
agree.
the thing I'm most proud of is that I've had fans from Trauma and fans that have seen it because of other reasons and end up loving it that will say things like, "Oh, Lauren and Christy are such a great couple," and that statement is great if you realize what they're saying.
Yeah.
That they're not qualifying it as a gay couple, and that they just saw like this random love story in the middle of goofy.
And that's what I
crazy
think the movie
stuff.
does really well.
Yeah.
That matter-of-fact element
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
But so Volume 2, do we have an update on when Volume 2 is going?
Yeah,
Because-
they want to set it to the following the can that's coming up.
Okay.
So it'll follow the same rate after that. They are finishing up post-production. There were a lot of people who wanted to have little parts in it, so things were added and, I believe I'm done shooting for it. Every time I've said I am, like, I get a phone call, so...
So you've done reshoots. Not
I've done
reshoots, but
some-
additional photography.
Yeah, some additional photography, but I believe we're done. I'm done.
Is
I
it
will say
difficult
that.
For you? I can imagine. You leave a role behind,
Yeah.
kind of move on. It's like, oh, no, you have to be pulled back into it. Find that
You
character
know,
again.
The Godfather went through the same thing, you know?
And
We're
50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
We're comparing The Godfather to Return to Nukem High
They
Volume
pulled me
Charlie's
back
Angels
in.
won. Charlie's Angels won because they didn't show the Nokia phone properly. So
Oh.
it wasn't good product placement. They had
Well,
to spend
World War
millions.
Z. World War
World War
Z.
Z.
Well, that was for different reasons.
Yeah, I knew. I
They're
believe
trying
they're
to
the
fix
same.
it.
Bollywood musical number in Battery Park. I mean, it's the same.
Yeah, no,
it's all the
Exactly.
same.
I
But I
concur.
mean, I can put that on my resume now. Like, I have Bollywood experience because of Volume 2 reshoots.
They added
So
a
that's
Bolly-
good. But
That's kind of interesting. Okay.
yeah.
So, all right. So we're expecting that. What else do you have going on?
I just wrapped a few random things, but I worked on a feature called Sociopathia, which I'm really excited about. It's directed by Rich Mallory and Ruby LaRocca, and she is like a very well-known scream queen in the world of horror. And I really enjoyed working with her, and I got to work with Nicola Fiore, who's also done a few things with Trauma, including Mr. Bricks,
Okay.
and she also was in Slaughter Daughter, which was directed by Travis Campbell, who did the editing and screenwriting for Nukem High. And there's gonna be a lot of news coming up with that soon, but it's basically like a female take on Maniac.
Ha, I like that.
Yeah.
The new Maniac or the old Maniac?
I
Because
don't.
they're pretty different movies.
Yeah,
I'm just
I
curious.
would say probably more new, just because our main actress, Tammy Jean, she's very attractive. She's very innocent looking, very unassuming, but she does
The
have
Elijah Wood effect.
issues. Yeah, exactly. And I play Kat, who is kind of the foil to her love, issues, and I can make or break her. So.
And when can we expect to see some stuff on that? What are we?
Well, trailer should be coming up probably in the next few months, and we're shooting to have it out by summer festivals. So that'll be.
I think you're really great at balancing physical comedy with
you.
being the straight character. You know what I mean? It's a hard thing to do.
Everything
Yeah.
Chroma's about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and what trauma's about exactly. But I think it takes a special
Thank
skill.
you.
Not just any actor I think can do that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Bill Murray. That's
There we go. Bill Murray
The
was the
go-to for
inspiration.
everyone.
Bill, he really is though, because like when I approached Chrissy, I wanted to not think of all the crazy stuff that was going on in the movie. I just thought this is a normal teenager who can see clearly that everything's messed up, and then she sees this girl who, like, for every reason she should never get along with, but she's
Never.
like, she's cute and she gets me going, so that's exciting.
That happens.
But and just I don't know. And I had a fan once tell me I have great resting bitch face. So I think that like the fact that I like to deadpan based off the way I look, kind of.
It's kind of inherent almost. You don't really
Yeah,
have to try.
it's I don't try at all. It just happens. But I like Bill Murray for that, basically.
Well, there you have it, folks.
Bill Murray.
Bill Murray.
Your spirit animal in a
Your
way.
spirit
Yeah,
animal.
He's
yeah.
everyone's spirit animal.
I hope I get to work with him one day. I don't know what it would ever be though.
It'd be like a Zombieland-esque kind of movie.
Yeah,
I would
it probably
Hey,
would
they
be.
are. Their sequel's been on the back burner for a long
But
time.
think.
he's-
It's not gonna happen.
Hey, he could. Oh, he was killed.
Yeah.
But hey,
Maybe he's a zombie now.
it's the zombie.
Zombie
exactly.
Bill Murray cameo.
Oh.
That would be fantastic. We just cracked it. Let's write that script.
Done. The end.
We're rating it.
Thanks for joining us
No.
on In Bad With.
Justine and Matt.
Well, thank you for joining us. This has been quite a bit of fun.
I
Thanks,
hope
guys.
you enjoyed our discussion and that weird clip at the end of us interviewing someone in my bed. That's something that we hopefully will do again because I enjoyed it. Did you enjoy it?
I did too. You could see I was reluctant.
You were
But-
above the covers, even though I did laundry and I made sure.
I
it was
know
clean,
you were clear about
still-
that, but I did warm up to it in the end.
You did warm up to it. So should we say where people can find us besides on this show?
Yes, shameless self-plug, of course.
This is what we do.
Well, I'm Just Browning. You can find me on Twitter at JustBrowning. Also on this YouTube channel, On the Scene.
I'm Matt Donato. You can find me at Donato Bomb or on We Got This Covered with one of my many features, reviews, any kind of content you want.
And as for me, thank you so much for having me over. On Twitter, I'm Claire Spanish, whereas you can see my artwork on chiaraspagnoliart.com. Thanks.
Can you, before we end, just say the way you say Leonardo DiCaprio's name? It was just his 40th birthday.
I know. Happy birthday, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, man.
I giggle every time.
That's perfect.
The end!